Hello.
Hey, Wenjing, how are you?
Good.
Are you still
Ah,
in the hotel? No.
yeah, nice jacket.
Yes, I'm branded.
Yeah.
Are you still in the hotel or are you back in
No, I'm
Sydney?
back at home.
Okay, nice.
How about you?
Yeah, I'm still in the hotel.
You
I
still?
don't have my flight is 10:40 this evening.
Oh.
So I fly through a strange night. I lose Friday. I have no Friday on the dateline.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, good morning, folks.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey,
Okay. Ah, oh, here's our mysterious Louise note taker. One of those days I should take some coffee break to figure out who that is. Oh, okay.
That spelling of Lewis, to me, it looks like a capital I, the first letter. Is that, am I reading that correctly? Strange spelling.
Yeah.
Maybe we could Google Lewis with an I and see who that is.
Yeah.
I'm not very familiar with these note takers, but I'm somewhat suspicious when I see that sort of thing. You wonder who's sitting in.
Yeah. Otter.ai, it's been around for a long time actually, many years now.
Oh,
It's not one of the more recent AI agents. It's been around. Just typing in. Hello, Neil. Hi, Stephen.
Good morning, Wei Jin.
Well, thank you for joining. I think the usual crowd is here. Let me maybe just kick start, then we can, because our first agenda is mostly uh, talking about Joe's here. I hope Drama will be able to join later, but the summit on human agency this week, and then the second one the continue if we have time to review. But I like the discussion about disclosure, retention, and repurpose of personal data. So if we want to focus on that, I think that would be very helpful. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, oh, hi, Eric.
Howdy.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How's the agenda look like?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Okay. Just let me do the antitrust policy notice here. We are all familiar with those, and the trust of IP's IPR policy. That's the second one is to make sure the specification we wrote it has an integrity so that all the rights, everything are clear. Good. All right, so we can jump into any news to share and then to H2H. Anything outside of this? Outside of the agenda item itself?
I mean, I did an extensive commentary on the discussion in What is an Agent amongst the discussions. And
Uh,
if anyone saw that yet, but I went into it as to where I
good,
think he was
good.
problematic.
How about we come down to the
But that's,
on there? So there's two topics. Both are very interesting. I've been reading it until at least 2 days ago. So um, there's two threads there we should get into. I think we can do that. If not too much on the news side, then maybe Joe, would you mind starting with the human agency, summit workshop?
Yeah, sure. So I'm here in my complimentary Linux Foundation hoodie. For the first time, I'm in some sort of decent time zone for this meeting instead of waking up in the early hours in Sydney. I'm in Napa Valley in California. Monday, we had the Human to Human Summit, hosted very capably by Drummond and my fellow Aussie, Michael Casey. Very interesting speakers on a distributed network app called, I think, H2H, which was only in beta. We were given this app to put on our phones and then warned that it was all going to disappear again, I think, in a few days' time. But that's coming down the pipeline somewhere. And then Tuesday and Wednesday was the Linux member summit, where I attended a bunch of different things. Wenjing, would you summarize all of that? It went smoothly. Nobody died.
And yeah, yeah.
No robots were sighted in the hallways. Yes.
Yeah, so the Monday is the human agency. I thought went really well, right? So there's a theme related to H2H. So H2H is they were releasing or announcing the software. It's a personal so the way I look at it is FPP, I guess. It's somewhat related to H2H, which is a software developed by Affinity. And so we got a chance to actually test it. Essentially, there's a did web VH. The trust graph, like in our trust graph working group, at least a early version of that is implemented. Um, it is based on DITCOM, although there's a um, uh, alternative that this would be replaced or be also allow TSP to be used. So that is not yet implemented, but it's a intention there. What else is there? But this is presented as like a social relationship building tool to create person-to-person relationship. It will be there's earlier versions of it, but this design is really based on did and trust graphs and credentials, like the thing we familiar with. But as a app to a user doesn't know any of this, it will look like similar to um, those social connection app. And I find myself doing this as a demo. So I'm using H2H to trying to connect, learning, the user interface and how it works. But at the same time, people say, "Can I do linking?" And of course, I get to linking. And that's a common challenge, right? You want to
Yeah.
introduce a new concept, but to the end user look the same.
Right.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
guess a big part of it is how you get that initial credential.
It is, but most people wouldn't be able to appreciate that in an intuitive level, right? They would,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you would have to
Well,
explain the theory, and I think that's a common challenge.
yeah.
But
I
uh,
would say it's not
that,
theory, it's in practice, right? What is the practice of giving that initial credential? That has to be different than
yeah,
just
yeah,
logging
yeah,
on, just downloading an
yeah,
app.
yeah. So that's one group, and then the other is I think it's called AI
Yeah,
Advanced.
are you talking about Brenda's one, Wenjing?
Yeah.
So, yeah, Brendan Miller also presented. Well, I have that on my screen as well, on my phone as well, but
Okay.
it doesn't declare its name anywhere. So it's
Oh.
obviously at a stage of beta where the marketing group hasn't got to it yet.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
So it's not declaring itself or what it's called.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm more like looking at the
oh,
people who
wait a second.
actually attended this summit. So that's one big group is people like us basically talking about first person relationships, H to H, etc. There's another group more on policy side. So you will be familiar with a lot of like foundations or groups talking about how do we govern AI. So that's another group of people with very different background. And the third group, I think, are more of uh, I think would it be probably adjacent to blockchain, something like that, right? It's as it related, but quite they come from different background. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
Um, so it's to me it's very interesting. And the only the piece I personally contributed is a kind of a unorganized or disorganized panel, which talks about the notebook or open claw moment. So I
Mm.
enjoy that. We had two sessions on that, and everybody had something to say. So the piece I thought I trying to say is not less on security. I think people got a good idea how to solve security issues, but more on accountability and alignment. So accountability, as in how do something doing bad? It's a piece of software doing something bad. Who's the person behind it that they need to be accountable for? And alignment is how do I make sure these software, work for me rather than work for, I guess we can point to, a big platform or government or somebody, right? Versus you, the user, right? And
Mm.
I thought those were kind of a little bit lacking in the workshop.
Did they give an update on the kernel, the Linux kernel project?
Yes, so the Linux kernel, I think they call the Linux kernel project actually did not happen there, of course, because the next day is the ALF's member summit. So it's yesterday.
Oh,
So yesterday is what, Wednesday?
25th. Yeah.
So yeah, Wednesday we got all together. So Greg, which is the kind of the lead for the Linux kernel project, one of the engineer, I think, is in that group. I forgot her name. I met her first time last yesterday. And then Daniela Hart, so I guess the key thing is what is it called? Open. Um, I'm trying to remember the name of the um, verifiable trust. verifiable trust VTC, I think.
Uh,
So this is now a LFDT lab project.
okay.
So this is the code, basically Affinity and others, mostly Affinity, I think, contributed. So they implement this, and the open source project is called OpenVTC. And I think yes, since yesterday it's officially in LFDT.
Mm,
It gives you a um, kind of like command line CLI that you could go through. So instead of the app is focused on the UI, how to present the user, but the OpenVTC, it's I actually didn't look myself, look it up. But if any of
mm,
you can find it, there should be it should be visible now
okay.
since yesterday. Um, so Affinity and others contributed this to LVDT.
Great. Thank you.
So we spent 2 hours with the whole room, kind of like 20, 15, 20 people, review the whole process. Glenn and Adam from Affinity did a demo, go through all the COIs, yeah, creating this and all that sort of thing. Um, so that's a new development. And I think the next step would be like, okay, once you have that, then who's, the credential issuer? So the thinking would be like LFX. If you guys, we probably been asked to use LFX to log into these meetings. So that would be, probably like it becomes the issuer, for instance, right?
Mm,
Um, then the kernel group may be thinking about, so there's a question come up about how that connect with GitHub. Not right now it's not, but that's the baseline software, their CLI, and people can play with it and see how it works. But how that actually apply to day-to-day project use are yet to be decided. So then I think the community maybe. Let me see. Did I say open? Oh, yeah, VTC, I think verifiable trust. I think C is community or something like.
mm.
So the community is
VTC, you're asking what that stands for?
VTC
Verified
is a verifiable trust
Trust Community.
community, I think. The
Yes.
community basically
Yes.
means like in open source, it will be open source project. It can be very small or can be very large, whatever project you are in. The community is the unit that define policy. So it will be defining what we call governance, I guess. You want to define, say, like, how do I identify? Do I need, like, the kernel group, for example, says they have a very concrete policy. They say, well, you need to know at least two people in the existing maintainer group, two real person that you need to at least know them for some reason. If you
In
don't
real
know
life.
them, we can introduce you, but you guys need to go talk to them. Second is they need a piece of like either employer or government issued real world identification, and that need to be validated by two people. So you really have to meet some people. You don't have to meet a lot of people, at least some. So usually they say, well, come to one of our these meetings and then yeah, meet in person, show them your ID, and that's the way they do it.
Mm,
But other groups don't have to. Some groups can be entirely virtual, and so that the group that defines they I think they come down to the word community, and so that would be the project which then decides governance They sound very good, but basically rules. You set a few rules. Um, it's not, so this is not yet done yet. Okay, so issuer is just thinking, so they are still thinking about it, not yet. Yeah. Um, so that's really interesting. Anyone can find open VTC yet? No?
No, I mean, I found their open source. Let me see, I'll put it here.
Open VTC.
This is their open source
Oh,
projects, but that's just it's not on there.
not on there. Okay, I will look for it. Should I be able to? I didn't take very detailed note or at the time find out the GitHub link, but
Wenjin, check the chat. I put a link there. It sounds like what you're describing, but I don't know.
verifiable community affinity open source. Yeah, it's one of the affinity projects. I'm not sure whether they've actually literally
This is a
moved
Y.
yet.
This is a Y Combinator project. This one.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's a Glencore, sorry, affinity, and maybe I should have put my search. Oh, sorry, put my search with affinity. Then it'll probably more likely.
No, this verifiable is a healthcare management one.
Ah, open source project. So apparently the name may not be over there yet.
Yeah.
Um, but if not formally done or the process, it should be soon anyway. I was trying to look for like, do they have announcement or anything? But no, no. Uh, so that's I think that's exciting. That's the, oops, sorry, where am I? Okay, back. Yeah. Um, Very cool. So they've done quite a lot of work, a mobile app, and a open source project with command lines that you can code, set up those things too. And I think the um, decentralized trust graph working group are documenting it. So they are coordinating with how the graph formation process is done there and what that information look like in implementation. That was yesterday. In general, I like the overall thing. So this question about I thought one thing sticking in my mind is what is or what is all these age coding agents and what does it mean for open source? And there are kind of philosophical discussions, but I like the more concrete ones. So one of the initial first issue is kind of interesting, is that a lot of maintainers are complaining because there are gazillions of people who can just point their coding agent to a particular repo and say, find a bug and solve it and submit a PR. And you literally can just do that in 5 minutes, API issue, or I submit it. And now the maintainers were like, what do I do with that? So they were unable to keep up. There's so many of them. Some are good, some are not that good, some are, completely missed the point. And so it's a very uh, practical issue. It's probably very illuminating too of this period of time where we still need or the actual software design, software architecture, everything still require a experienced person who understand the requirement and why we're doing certain ways, right? Versus a lot of like bug reports and fixes, etc., can be fully automated almost. But how do we tell which 80% are good, which 20% are not? It's very difficult to do.
I mean,
So
I
that
think for repositories, you have to tie the did of any agent to the did of an identified human. It's just if you don't do that, you're gonna have a Wild West and it's gonna be overrun with uh, malicious bots.
yeah, no, these are not malicious. They don't see any
I
of
know, but
those
in
as
the
malicious.
future, it will be true
Oh,
that
of
unless
course, of
that's the
course,
case,
of
that
course.
and
But
so that
right
solves the
now,
other
that's
problem
not
too.
the
Yeah.
issue. The issue is assuming they are non-malicious. So put the identity side aside for a moment. Identity is not 100% of the problem. That's what people are trying to say, right? So let's say these are not malicious. They are real people because the PR submitted with real people. You can ask them, email them. Yeah, they are responding. They are real people.
So it's
No
just the
doubt about it.
backlog of code review that you're referring to as the problem.
Which I thought is a more fundamental problem than identity. I thought that's actually a harder problem to solve because now you have to evaluate the quality. Um, it's outside of our comfort zone in some way, but I think we have to face that question. That's why I find it very interesting. So now, how do they like they have a very concrete example of problem that's happening today, and they were like, and these PRs, if you say, oh, no bots, well, then they will just lie to you, and these are not bots. You have no way to tell.
Well, so basically, the pull requests, you need a way to prioritize them. So you prioritize them potentially by, you know, some sort of using the trust graph to determine who is likely to submit the most valuable pull requests. And you look at those first.
Right.
You've got a contributor who has a history of contributing really valuable pull requests. Then you're going to review their pull requests before people who don't have that type of history. So I think that'd be one step of it.
Yeah. So interestingly, it's not hypothetical. I was in LFDT's technical advisory council, the tech. The one of the LFDT project proposed that they will put a rule saying we are so overwhelmed, we will not take. They didn't say bots. We will not take any like a newbie beginner PR submission. Basically, that's what you're saying too, because we cannot tell human or they may be very good, and then other people push back because hey, we are open source project, we're supposed to be nurturing, we need help, these new developers to come on board. That was our original open source like ethics, right? Is to be helpful and welcoming all the new developers. Uh, but now we are stuck in this place. It's very difficult, and there's a large number of them. Based on informal, just like informally review them. Some of them outright say this is generated by AI bot, others don't, and but at the end of the day, it's a long list of these things. And if we introduce sort of like a, like how often you've been doing, this is the first time you're doing it, and we reject them, then they will never have those new developers.
I
All
mean, I
right.
think
So
that's the reality. And unfortunately, software has been a casual, sloppy mess for the last 50 years, and that's going away.
and interestingly, the main issue is not about bots. They don't complain bots. They complain, I have no way to tell whether these are good quality or not. The overwhelming workload of reviewing them. So their only like a reasonable answer would be another bot to review them. Other than that, they don't
Yeah,
know what
right,
to
right.
do.
A human being may vibe code a solution, but then they submit as a human being, not as a bot. So through their existing account, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They even be the case, could be the case that a lot of them are very good PRs submitted, very good ones. But because of the volume, humans cannot handle it. And that points to this is what people I think call over-reliance issue. But what is over-reliance? This is kind of it creates its own reason to deploy bots. So so most of the like a practical solution would be you deploy a bot as well. And hopefully you train your bots to be, a good one to review them and yeah, which point to the another direction. If you go down that route, then it's slippery because very soon no one be in charge. You have, why you need another person to kick up a bot? You can kick up your own bots and your own review and like then where this is going. Eventually you as a maintainer actually will not be able to review because there are so many changes you never spend time understanding it. So you won't be able to review it either. In a year, you will be simply a figurehead, right?
Could be a short-term problem where the space of AI coding is accelerating so quickly where in 6 months it's like, well, human code is junk anyways. Why did we care how many commits, right? Now
Yeah,
now
yeah,
coding
yeah.
has caught up to being better vibe coding or better coding in general and to better review, right? It's
Yeah.
hard, it's just interesting to see. It could be a very short blip that this is even a concern. It could be long. I don't know.
So you will be thinking that the eventual conclusion is we will cede coding to agents.
Well, I mean, it looks to me like this with self-driving cars, right? So self-driving cars have had this long tail problem forever. They're starting to
Right.
get some adoption, but once they get over that hump, very shortly after, 6 months, 2 years, I don't know,
Yeah.
humans weren't allowed to be to drive, right? We will
Right.
only trust self-driving cars to drive because they can get stop accidents, right? So it
Yeah.
seems like there's that quantum tunneling almost for a lot of the problems AI creates,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
solves.
Joe, you get a sense, like I got a sense we maybe this year we're still debating. Maybe next year we won't be debating anymore. Because this is a very kind of a difficult, right? In this is the like all the people are essentially um, either provided funding for open source or they are maintainers of large projects. It's these executive or directors for large foundations like Container um, and the new ones AI for MCP AI, I'm sorry, agent um, protocol. And so even, it seems like this is a very, directional kind of thing.
One of the speakers that one of the sessions that I attended was a governance person at GitHub, and she was talking, amongst other things, about the flood of new contributors that comes when in September when the Northern Hemisphere school comes out.
Mm,
Thinking also about Steve's contribution about surely we're going to need play spaces. Like we still need play spaces for people to develop, as well as
mm,
more sophisticated places for important projects,
mm.
so that the open source thing can continue to do both of its tricks, quality as well as learning. But it's got to be reputation graph, right? It's just got to be reputation graph. And maybe the reputation graphs need to come as filters about what projects you can contribute to, instead of coming as a filter at the point of the PR.
Mm,
It's too late. You're into denial of service territory by the time you get to the PR for the
right.
poor old maintainer.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a solvable problem for GitHub, that they can build us those filters.
The GitHub seemed to be introducing a few, I don't know, I saw one of the presentation talk about deploying those GitHub actions or PR review bots. So you will do a single click, it will do the review for you. But that's still because now we have two type of contributors, you can say. Some are automated, some are semi-automated. We could try to tell the difference, but at the end of the day, they need to collaborate. And um, do we, the AI agents can write very good documentation. They can write. Actually, the way to tell it is a bot-generated PR is to see how good the documentation and comments are. Very detailed, and maybe human would think a little too long, but very detailed and thorough. Then that you can tell it's not a human.
Humans are too lazy, yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
The filter surely is quality and not humanness.
Yeah.
Like it,
So quality in some level, the bots are better. In some, yeah, the difficulty is how do we tell which is which? That's one. The second thing is bots tend to sometimes they make changes, maybe very small and subtle, but could potentially change your overall design. And you need to be very careful about not letting bot do something like that. It will be very convincing on the surface. Um, but because it's not very good at remembering the whole history and overall design and that sort of thing. They don't have very good memory. So it's a relatively small topic, very concrete. People are facing that right now, but have a long-term kind of a very philosophical, you know, yeah, it's a challenge people face. I remember the debate in LFDT Tech, and people were upset when, these projects, we were deciding not to take any of these anymore. It's just not worth it.
Not take any what?
They decide to have rules if you've never been done, like quite a few, like you said, reputation. If you don't
Hmm.
have a existing reputation, a long
Right.
history we can look into, we can do
Mhm.
refuse your PRs. Simply
Right.
will not review it.
Right. All right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is really like a lot of like a really open source people get very upset with that. Because they thought this is a community building, right? We're supposed to welcoming and help this young developer to get their first PI in. But they decided to say, I'm just gonna flat refuse everything. Unless
Right.
you can show me you have a long, I've done maybe on
Yes.
some other project, you've done a lot of work already.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that basically is the warning sign of what is coming.
Yeah. I mean, open doesn't mean without process. So I mean, there has to be some process, and what I guess that's what's being worked through now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for I guess for same reason, like new grads couldn't find a job because they want to experience. But you can't, so the young people can have the experience if you don't allow them to do some mistakes. And
Hmm.
Joe, you have other things you want to bring up on this?
You keep calling on me, Wenjing, and I really feel that I don't. And I'm a non-technical person sitting amongst technical people. So people start talking about GitHub, and I think, oh my God, I just look like an idiot. Um, and I'm tired from 3 days of talking to people. So I'm sorry, I can't help you out very much.
Oh, I will share one thing. Jim Zimmerman is the sort of he's the CEO of Linux Foundation, so he's like the head of all the heads basically. He always give a 20 minutes or so speech in the beginning of these conferences. So this year I remember two things. Well, the first thing is he said, "Well, we are in a event organizing company or organization." I don't know. So this is very interesting because at the end of the day, all these open source thing, if the bots are doing most of the work, then what are we here for? And this one thing will remain is to have a conference and go, find a nice place and meet, have a party. That we will still need that. So it's kind of like an interesting way
Yeah.
to look at it, right?
I mean, I think taking the humans out is kind of weird because the whole point of agents is to do human work.
Right.
So they should always be feeding back at some point to some work that some human wants done. And I think for me,
Exactly.
like what is that trail? Who is it all feeding into for
Yeah.
which human to want,
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just coding on their own because they feel like it's some human is
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I would say more practically, humans will have to learn the skill of learning code rather than just writing code. So we will need to be able to judge precisely what this one says, right? If there's a lot of PR coming, we need to learn the skill of how do we quickly judge good from bad.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh
but you know
God,
that's the same problem. It's not just software. If you look at law firms and articling students, and
right.
if AI is going to do drafting contracts, then there's nothing for the juniors or the entry level to do. And then what happens after that? If there's no juniors to come in,
Mm-hmm.
then they never get to move up the ranks in the firm. So the firm eventually it's like a tree, it's just going to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I think the time that we're in, if you are like a business analyst or product manager, this is like Disneyland. I mean, you could just, if you know what you want, right, it'll do what you want, but you have to know what it's doing too, because a lot of times it'll just do things because it may think it's faster or it's a
Mm-hmm.
shortcut. And again, there's the memory issue, right? So there's
Yeah.
still at this, where we are today, at least, you still have to be right on top of it because it doesn't really know where you're going, right? If you said, here's some software, write the unit test for it, it's fantastic, right?
Right.
But
Right.
you couldn't say, here's the unit test, go write the software because it has no idea why you're doing it. So, but I feel bad for like
You
entry
actually
level,
could say
techies.
this is the test and go write the software. That actually could work. The problem is then somebody need to magically somehow write all the test code or specify all the test cases, which is kind of the same problem. We
Well,
can,
maybe it could look, I agree. It could do the code, let's say for unit tests, but function tests it couldn't. When it comes down to the business behind the code, it's certainly, I mean, it doesn't know any better, right?
so yeah, so the example I have, and this will tell the actual real issue here. So the example I have is that Anthropic, this one engineer in Anthropic decided to rewrite. So we heard about, all our computing, open source, everything, Linux or Unix a lot. But when Unix was invented, it was invented with a programming language with it. C and Unix are one of the same. The two are dependent on each other. It's always two projects at the same time, right? So this engineer, one person decided, well, I'm gonna go, the C compiler is so old with so much things in it. people can never be certain, what is going on. So he decided to write a new C compiler from scratch. But he has a very good C specification, formally documented, very precise. He has all the test cases accumulated in the past, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years already. Long, long time, right? It was started from the 70s, actually, as early as 70s. So, so he could do it in a few days. I think, well, maybe weeks, but probably less than a month. And the cost he paid to the agent use is $20,000. It's not cheap, but compared to C compiler, that's nothing. And he's done. Very good production quality C compiler. But there's a I want to say, I'm not saying, well, we don't need to work anymore, but this is a fake case because they have all the human generated expertise represented in these documentations, in test cases, and many, many decades of bugs reports, right? So you could have an extremely comprehensive test suite.
Does
You
this
already have it.
does
And
this
for
Right, but
compiler have memory
that's
protection
easy
like Rust?
to reinvent or improve something that's existing. That's what Microsoft built their business on, right? Somebody else invented
exactly,
it,
exactly.
Microsoft
Yeah.
made
For
it
new
better.
things, those
So in
don't
that case of
exist.
the C compiler, yeah, of course, you gave it a ton of information on how to make a better C compiler. So if you're talking about something new or innovative or greenfield or whatever, it's not going to do that well.
Yeah.
But it has a lot more opportunities potentially do well. I think like in drug discovery, like
Yes,
no,
but
no,
at
no,
this point, you still need somebody with a vision, at least, right? So if
yes,
you
of
never,
course,
so my
100%.
point is, if you actually never coded, then you're not going to be a good person telling the AI agent what to do. If you don't know
Right.
how to do it yourself, it doesn't mean I have to code as fast.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't, right? It doesn't mean I don't have to code it as a high quality as it can, but I still have to have some kind of basic understanding of how to code if I'm going to work with it, right?
Mm,
I've never
mm,
coded before. It'll come up with something, but who knows how long that's going to actually last or work, or if it's actually true,
Yeah.
right? Whatever it's
mm.
doing. So you still, I mean, I don't, at this point, when this thing goes off, starts coding things, there's no way I can keep up with it. In the very beginning, I used to read all the lines of codes, or I would approve every line of code. Now I just say, just go ahead, like knock yourself out, and then I test it. And then it comes back later, and I know where it takes shortcuts, right? It doesn't think maybe from a
Yeah,
product
yeah,
point of view. It thinks
yeah,
about how am I going to get A to B to C, and it doesn't think beyond that because it can't. It will one day, and then
yeah.
I won't open the door. That's all. Right?
Yeah, yeah. So another part of it, I mean, so there are some of these sessions are very practical ones. Basically, people trying to do this and what they find out, and I thought those are very useful. Some are more philosophical, but usually philosophical one they come at the end be very positive for humans. That's natural. But otherwise, yeah, very interesting. So that's what we have for share. And then on the second, we have 10 minutes for the second topic. Again, I got quite a bit of a feedback on the introduction session already, so I'm gonna go revise it. And we can do that offline. And then we should go probably look at the discussions and also about disclosure, retention, and repurpose personal data. So let me see. How do I get? I, this is really odd. It doesn't. New tab. Okay. Oh, here. And probably should go back to the project itself and and discussions. So Oh, there's another one. Okay, good. So the two discussions I really encourage you, mostly Joe, thank you very much, and Steve, and Sankashan of very, very good read. I loved reading them. So, but you guys want to go ahead, maybe give a introduction and see how to use the 10 minutes we have.
Perhaps I can go first. What happens is Sankashan, I make a post and Sankashan responds to it in 30 minutes. And then I have to go away and think for a week about what Sankashan says. I make a new post and Sankashan responds again in 30 minutes. Whoa, whoa, dude.
That's why
You know,
Joe and I
I
were
do.
joking, like, hey, maybe Saksha has an agent helping him.
Well, even does Sankashan come and talk? Like, is Sankashan a real person? Anyway, the sort of scenario that I have been conversations in these two conferences and also in this thread is to think about relationships not as a single line in a graph, and also to think about communities not as a single bubble, I suppose, within a graph, but instead to think about both things as being endlessly contestable. And I've used a few times the example. I end up driving my daughter who's 18. So in Australia quite recently she's allowed to drink and her mates are allowed to drink. So they go out in town in the middle of the night, and I drive them home, and they're very they're unloosened in the back of the car. They forget that I'm there. Anyway, they continually talk about relationships, and I'm using their model. I think about my daughter and her best friend. Instead of the relationship being a single line, the relationship is something that this party has a private assessment of, and this party has a private assessment of. The assessments that they make in public are different from the assessments that they make in private. And then the assessments that they make in different publics, you know, when they are representing that relationship in audience A, it's a different representation in audience B. Also, all the other parties in their social group have a model of that relationship, and they all will represent that differently in different audiences. So instead of thinking of the relationship as this single binary on-off line like an R did, I'm thinking of the relationship as this bundle of cabling, quite complex bundle of cabling, partially visible to each party, but parts of it are also opaque. And then I switch metaphor and I say, think about the relationship between the United States and the UK, the diplomatic relationship between the United States and the UK. It is also a very complex bundle of cabling. China is watching that relationship, Russia, Canada, all the players. And if you're Denmark, what is happening in that relationship, the special relationship between the UK and the US, is part of your set of constraints of what you can do about Greenland, for example. Did I say Denmark? I hope I did.
Yeah, I learned something I thought interesting. That is it Denmark who sold the Virgin Island to US? But in
I don't
that
know.
sale, there's a condition that Greenland they can keep.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
there's no end of contractual reasons why Denmark should keep Green. Apart from anything else, is that it's the preference. It seems to be the preference of the people
Yeah.
of Greenland. Anyway, that knocks us off topic. What I think is in that seething. The other thing is that the alliances is not virtual trust communities that you could put a did on when you talk about alliances between the nations or between the teenagers. So I'm saying to people, there are these structures of governance. There is governance without government in anarchy among teenagers. And there is governance without government in anarchy among nations. There's still governance in anarchy among nations.
Yeah.
And if we imagine an anarchy of AIs, there are models there in the way that my teenage daughter and her girlfriends
Right.
manage norm creation. I'm talking about norm creation, and I suppose I'm saying also, if people give me enough minutes, and at some point people have to cut me off, especially when I've had coffee. What I'm saying is that human communities are norm creation machines. And at my most out there, I'm saying a human village is a Turing machine. And the Turing machine is running a program called culture. And when I was traveling across the Pacific, I had the good fortune to have a great plane buddy who was a high school principal in Hercules in the North Bay area, not far from where I am. And he wanted to visit all the world's oceans. And he was next going to Barrow in the north of Alaska. And I said, well, what's a Barrow? Is it an oil town or what is it? He said, no, it's an indigenous community. I'm like, oh my God. So the human village, that a pre-state human village could extract a living from Barrow in the north of Alaska. The same computer transported and running a different program can survive in the Australian desert. So you can hardly think of two more different environments. Very, very strange to find a species in so different two environments. But then, of course, because we've got that computer that can do those such very different environments, we're pre-adapted then for the shopping mall and for the university department and for ToIP group. So I think there's a model there, and it's a reputation. It's based on reputation, right? So your capacity to survive inside that society is based on your adherence to norms. And then you've got your own ambitions and you're pushing the norms. So the norms are evolving. And if the norms go down a bad track, the next village over will push you off the cliff if their norms are more effective so there's evolution then.
But the norm forming part is like a game. The people are playing a game. And as the game goes on, the norm changes, right?
Yeah, that's right. And the other, I mean, I am banging on a bit now, but Lynn gave me a thumbs up, so I can. The other thing is that these communities can enforce what the norms are. So that when my daughter and her mate says, "Oh no, we don't talk to Sophie anymore. She's a cow." Well, awful. So Sophie, poor old Sophie, is banished from the village. The villagers don't even know what rule Sophie has breached.
Yeah.
So there are norms that are forming that the village knows, but the villagers don't. And this is a sort of a more general point. I mean, I'm quite influenced by Joseph Henrich pulling a lot of these sources together that I've read over many years. He gives an example from South America of a group of people who have this very complex food preparation ceremony is the word that comes to my mind. There's 10 steps in this food preparation. And then when you ask them why they do it, they say, because of God. You have to do it this way. But when a modern chemist looks at those 10 steps, there's a poison in the raw ingredient that is being reduced and reduced and reduced by each of these food preparation steps. So at the end of the 10 steps, the food is palatable. So a norm that is enforced because of God is actually a very effective way of surviving in that environment. Anyway, so maybe I can try and drive this home. I'm thinking that the deeper thing is that human communities have the ability to extract energy from any environment, but it's a collaborative effort. So as soon as you've got a collaborative effort of extracting energy, then you've got to somehow distribute that energy amongst the villagers. You have to defend the store of energy against any one villager who wants to pinch it all, steal it all. And you have to, of course, defend against outsiders who want to steal that store of energy. Now, AIs need energy. So if we were to start to demand, perhaps at the wall of a GitHub repo, for example, if we were to demand at the wall of a GitHub repo that you must demonstrate, you must bring your reputation graph to the wall, the village, the wall
Yeah.
of the GitHub repo, and you must present your reputation graphs, plural. You might have a Apache graph and a GitHub graph and a Linux Foundation graph. You present them at the gate of the village, which is the GitHub repo, and that is your ticket in.
Mm.
The norms of the village in that repo have an incentive to fit around you if you're a successful, if you're a valuable contributor.
Mm.
And they certainly have an incentive to repel you if you are likely not. But also the raider, or not the raider, the contributor has an incentive to try and work out what the norms of the village are. And when you're relatively new in a group, like I am, you're desperately trying to work out what those norms are, and talking with nobody else, talking for 10 minutes, start to be in breach. So I noticed the clock has turned over. I'm going to shut up.
Well, thank you, Joe.
That's what that thread's about.
Now we can read the comments. I understand the.
I know we wouldn't be able to finish all the topics, so sorry, Steve. We will come back maybe next week, focus on what is an
Oh,
agent.
Steve, yeah, I've stolen all your minutes, Steve. I'm sorry.
But I want to encourage everybody to really read through both threads. Sangshan, because of time issues, never could join our call, but he's really very he's very insightful for a lot of things. So a lot of reading there too. If one place, I think these two threads are great. Please join in. And if you have a topic you're passionate about, please create a new one here. It's straightforward to do. And I think these will become very valuable.
I also put my taxonomy for agent systems, which is the basis of my thinking and critique, into the chat as well. And I guess I should link it into the discussion too.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah, I
haven't
mean,
been system. Yeah, go ahead.
I did one mega reply to everything that had been discussed so far in the chat because I needed to do an inline reply because I had so many granular disagreements and corrections and various alternate viewpoints. So anyhow,
Yeah. I do
okay.
find like the Joe, your description about relationship and village very, very illuminating. There's one part if I think we had talked about behavior versus what is the other term I use? But I was always saying like the behavior is more important to me because similarly to when we talk about relationship in the informal sense, it's extremely complex. We can never precisely describe it. And the same thing for behavior too. So we biologically, right, model all our relationships. We physically have allocated some space at our head to Joe, to Steve, to Eric. Everybody has something, in our head. And this is also exponentialness because we have a bilaterally, each one need to model it. So there's a lot of brain power behind it to create these really kind of sophisticated relationships there. Energy, exactly. All
All
right.
right.
So, yeah, if we, Steve, if you could link the comment somehow to either the thread or somewhere, then we will be able to maybe easier to get back to.
Yeah, like I said, I'll go back into my comment and link the page.
Yeah. I'm
All right.
just starting to read Haley your comments on reputations. Very good. Well, we
All
run
right.
out of time, and so we will come back. Maybe hopefully I can finish another iteration. We can review that document again, and also get back to what is an agent next week. Sounds
Awesome.
good?
Thank
Good.
you.
Sounds
Good
good.
job.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Reggie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
See you, everybody.
I'm reading to the.